Oh, good morning, good morning. Just welcome everyone in to one of my favourite songs by Zac Brown's band, and we'll come back to him in a moment. I'll just let people come on in, listen to the words. Welcome, beautiful people, welcome. I'm gonna wait for another minute, well, 30 seconds actually, and we'll get started. I've got a lot to talk about. Hey, beautiful people joining. Welcome, welcome. Happy Sunday. Okay. Thank you, Zac. We'll come back to him later. From there. Okay, morning guys. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. So much gratitude for that anyway. Given it's Sunday, it's Mother's Day, and we're in this crazy transformation and challenge and experience of being in isolation for some of us and distancing, etc., etc. And so I was thinking about maybe postponing today, but there's parts of that I want to talk about today that is going to be really relevant for you as well. So before I get started, just if you haven't used Zoom before, don't worry, it's, you know, you just kind of just listen. There is a little chat box, so if you kind of scroll, like bring up your cursor on your screen, and if you go down to the bottom, there is an option that says chat. So if you kind of have questions, what I'm going to do is, in a moment, I'm going to go to full screen. So you're just going to basically see me, a little me, like a mini me, and see just some of the stuff that I want to talk about, of how even in very troubling times for some, we can still live from live from a place that allows us and our dogs to live our best life. And then I'll come back to the chat. So actually what I don't know is, I don't know when I'm in full screen if you guys can still chat and put something in the chat box. I don't know. We can have a look at that, but definitely we'll do that at the end. But I want to get a little bit of interaction going to begin with. We've got quite a few running already, which is amazing. So tell me, like, are you all in the UK? Like whereabouts are you joining in from? Are you still in your pajam-yams? Because, you know, not only is it Sunday, not only is it Mother's Day, but also we're in a little bit of lockdown right now, so there's all the excuse to still be in our pajam-yams, as you guys are joining me today. So I would love to know, just kind of, as I say, don't be scared, like dive right in there, go into the chat box, and yeah, let me know you like in the UK, you're in Australia, you're parts of Europe, America. I know some people in the US wanted to be there, but it's quite early in the morning for them, depending on where in the States they are. If you can see the chat box, then guys, as I say, jump on. If anybody does, like, everyone seems to be like not wanting to put any chats in. I encourage you, I invite you to do that. I just want to know where you guys are, where you all at, what's coming up for you right now in terms of how you're feeling. Are you sat with your dog? Is your dog downstairs? I'm going to leave you guys to chat in there. Come on, man, I can't believe nobody's putting anything in the chat box. Okay. Okay, hi everybody. I've just realised something. I've been gabbering away at myself and realising that I've put you all in the waiting room. So what I want you all to do, hello and welcome. I had a beautiful song set up and everything. Isn't that so funny? The powers of technology, when you kind of prepare and plan, and technology still tries to trick you. So what I wanted to make sure is that everyone can hear me. So if you can just put in the chat box that you can hear me, that you are, it says 32 waiting. There should be, if you can scroll down to the bottom of the Zoom screen, there should be an option that says chat. But maybe you can't. No, I think maybe I have to admit you. Oh wow, okay, I did. think I have to, do I have to admit you all? Okay. Admit all, there we go. Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome. Okay, and now I can see you all. Great. Oh, so I was just saying, I had like a lovely introduction. We had music, we had everything in, and I was like, why is no one like putting anything in the chat box? And then I realised I put you in a waiting room that I don't normally do, and then I had to bring you all into that from that waiting room. So anyway, I'm going to come back to that song because it's really relevant. It's one of my favourite bands called Zac Brown Band, and the title of the song is Quiet Your Mind. Really relevant, really relevant right now. I'm going to come back to that later. So welcome. Have a lot that I'm really excited to bring this webinar to you. So thank you for, a lot of gratitude for you joining me, not just on a Sunday. It's also Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day for all of you beautiful mothers out there. And also, a little bit of crazy times right now in terms of the lockdown and self-isolation, social distancing, etc. So what I would love you all to do before we get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my screen onto full so you can kind of see it's like a little mini me, but you can see just some of the slides that I kind of want to talk about, just so you have some visuals. There is a chat box at the bottom, so if you kind of go at the bottom of Zoom, there's a little option that says chat. What I really want to know is like where in the world you are listening from. Are you in your pajamas? Because, it is a Sunday morning, it's Mother's Day, and we're not really being encouraged to go anywhere. So perfect excuse to actually still be sat in your pajamas. So if you can just drop, I encourage you just to drop in the chat box where it is you're listening from. Are you in your pajamas? Is your dog with you? Is your dog not with you? Yeah, tell me where you are all joining in from. Brilliant, awesome. So I can see that coming through. Just about dressed. From East Sussex. Hi, Lexi. Wow, brilliant, fantastic. Okay, what I am not sure if you can do is when I go into. Oh, I've got Angie. I'm just going to knock you onto mute, friend. There we go. If you can, you should have all come in on mute. If you're not, could you just please go to your microphone to make sure that you're all on mute? I would much appreciate that. There's a couple of other people. Thank you, that's perfect. So when I go into full screen, the only thing I'm not sure is if you can still go into the chat group. So chat box. If you've got questions, then just drop them in if you can while I'm on full screen. If I'm not, then obviously we'll have time for that once I've kind of finished talking as well. And I'm going to get straight to it, guys. So we're going to come, as I say, like this morning, I had it all set up and this beautiful song to play as an introduction. So this is recorded anyway, so you can go back to the start if you want to. When I'm like, why is no one chatting to me? Okay, I'm going to get started. So, guys, sit back, relax, have your breakfast, have a cup of tea. Technically, we're treating this crazy experience and challenge and growth right now as Christmas Eve, right? So imagine it's Christmas Eve and maybe have a little gin and tonic while you sit back and listen to my talk. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and then I'm going to go jump into the talk. I'm going to go into full screen. Edit, so you guys can sit back and relax. And here we go. So hopefully you can see me all. And I think there's people that I need to keep adding to the group. Okay, that's fine. Whoops. Oh, I don't even know how to go back now. Oh no, my goodness, there we go. So welcome. And in this crazy time, I did think about, should I postpone my little webinar? I'm so excited to just give you my offerings and my teachings and my experience of the things that I feel from my perspective are really, really helpful in allowing us to improve our life for the better and improve the life of our dogs as well. And so that's why I've called it like how you and your dog can live your best life. And I appreciate right now that for some people, they are experiencing uncertain times. They're experiencing huge change in emotional states because of that. And that's why I was like, does it feel better to postpone it? And I just sat with it for some time. I'm like, do you know what? It doesn't feel right to postpone it. So I'm just going to jump straight in there. Bear with me. I can see other people joining. So I'm just going to see how I can invite them. Okay, perfect, that's fine. They're there. Okay, so for those of you that don't know anything about who I am and what I do, this is me, and there is a story behind, just a really brief story about who I am and the work that I do with humans, the work that I do with dogs, but everything that I am, everything that I encompass. So one of the beautiful opportunities that I have had that has shaped my teachings and shaped my experience and shaped my understanding of canines as a whole system is the work that I did with captive wolves. So I spent 3 years working with captive wolves, but way before that, I'm a zoologist, a conservation biologist. I have practiced for many years, like earth-based teachings for canine wellness, for canine health, for human health and human wellness. I travel all over giving talks on canine wellness. I also do retreats. So this is me doing some teaching in the retreats. I, as I say, travel all over the UK, travel also internationally, although that's been stopped at the moment, although my UK travel's been stopped as well, to bring teachings to as many people as I can so that I can empower them and inspire them to not only live their best life, but we can allow our dogs to live their best life as well. And the reason why this is so important for me is because I see everything as a collective, which is why I go back to what I said before, is that I really didn't want to postpone this talk because there's some really important lessons and really important teachings that we can embrace right now because of the current climate and the current condition that can start off of experiencing it as the self and in the self, but we can also experience for our dogs as understanding how this works and operates within another species, another being that we coexist with, and actually how that can ripple out. So I just want to say this, there are also other people enjoying, there's other people joining in, so I'm just going to sort that out now. Okay, there we go. And now I need to go back because I haven't finished that story. So I work with people, I work with dogs, I work with people and dogs on one-to-one. I, as I say, teach and talk, give teachings across the UK and internationally. I look at not just the understanding dynamics of what it is to have a canine and what a canine is, but also from a whole system and a whole ecosystem approach of what we need to understand from not just a physical perspective, but a non-physical perspective to support our dogs. Sorry, Zoom is giving me information as people are joining, so let me just close that. Okay, right. So I wanted to jump right in and give you the story about Tunkasila, and this is what I love like about synchronicity. So I was getting ready this morning, like normally still by now I'd still be in like my slouchy clothes, and I was like, no, I need to look a little bit smarter because, you know, I'm still at home, but I am giving a webinar, and I was like, oh, I don't know what to wear, and like I put this jumper on. So Tunkasila, this is my dear beautiful wolf dog Tunkasila, who's 12, and this is the jumper that I wore when I picked her up as a teeny tiny puppy, and I was like, oh my god, like see, this just synchronicity all of the time. So with Tunkasila, there was a story that I want to share with you before I got Tunkasila, but there is a journey that we've been through together and still continue to be together that has really empowered me and inspired me to bring my teachings to other people so that they can understand how they can better their life for themselves and better their life for their dog. So I've always, up until a few years ago, 8 years ago, I would say, I've kind of always lived a life of self-doubt. So I've always, although I'm very, you know, I like to make people laugh, I like to make people feel good about themselves, I think that's important, but and I always like to be jolly and smiley, but kind of behind that for many years, and even in my childhood, I've lived a life where I've lacked in confidence, and I've never felt good enough, and I've always felt like people were better than me, and that really I deserve nothing. I was not going to amount to anything, and I deserve nothing. Guys, again, if I can just ask you to mute your microphones, that would be really appreciated. I can just hear some people, their microphones must still be on. And I kind of have, yeah, for many years lived that way of life, unbeknown to me, not unbeknown to me, not knowing to me that this would also affect my life experiences, shape my existence. And this is the kind of part of the story that I want to share with you as well. It's really, really personal to me and kind of something that I'm just kind of bringing out now. And it's always really interesting because I always wondered, like, where did this come from? Because I've actually had a very, very privileged childhood in that sense of, you know, I've had a mum and dad, or I have a mum and dad that, you know, have always given me so much love, have always given me so much support, have always given me so much praise. But later on in the talk, when I talk to you kind of this whole concept of the non-physical aspects that we are, this bit that many people are not talking about, and it's so important for ourselves and so important for our dogs, which is the concept of what's classed as transgenerational trauma. So the trauma that an individual has experienced within an ancestry, within a lineage that has happened before us, but that we then start to live. And only as I come into, had I come into my adult self and how I've worked through my own ways and my own experiences and my own life, and I've created a change, is that I'm in deep communication with my mum about actually her trauma when she was born into an environment, into a life where she felt unsafe. So she has grown up living in an environment, living an experience where she believed like the world is not a safe place. And unbeknown to her, then unbeknown to me at that time, I have also lived that life and lived that belief and lived that experience at a subconscious level of not being told that by my mum, but from feeling that energy that my mum has felt all of her life as well. And so this is why when I mentioned on the advert of the webinar, there's two things that like are really important for us to learn about and understand and consider that isn't really being addressed. This is one of the things that we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about, in terms of the self-love, of the love of the self, and how we become and walk as our true selves. But because of all the years that I spent just, you know, lacking in confidence, compare myself to everybody and, you know, compare myself for the worse, rather than kind of being an equal, and just lacking in confidence, not feeling deserving, I literally placed myself in situations that affirmed and confirmed my beliefs that I wasn't good enough, that, you know, I was deserving of nothing. And so those situations have actually been quite scary. And one of those situations that was very, very scary and life-threatening was when I was in an abusive relationship. And I didn't know how to get out of that abusive relationship, because at that moment in time when I was that age, again, I was in that place of lacking in confidence, really feeling that I was good for nothing. And so this is all that I deserved. This was as good as life was going to get. This is what I deserved. And how can I get out of this relationship? Now, I got out of that relationship because of Tunkasila. I got Tunkasila as a young puppy. And yeah, there's always a pause when I tell the story. I got Tunkasila as a young puppy, and unfortunately the beating started to happen on Tunkasila. And I was like, okay, I deserve it. I deserve those beatings, but my dog doesn't. And so Tunkasila in that sense quite literally saved my life, because I left that relationship. I had the confidence and strength to leave that relationship because of Tunkasila, to save her. But little did I know what damage was already going to be done for Tunkasila, because at that time, you know, well, she's a dog, how's she going to understand this? She's a puppy, how will she understand that? We've got, you know, years of her life ahead of her to support her and bring her into a state where she is literally living her best life. But when I left that relationship, I still continued to lack in confidence. I still continued to not feel I was deserving of anything. I still continued to feel that everyone was better than me and I wasn't going to amount to anything. And so the same thing happened again. I kind of had a break from relationships, but then when I met another partner, it was a very, very similar, almost very identical relationship and pattern, where again I fell into an abusive relationship. And again, for me, it was more, this is what I deserve, you know, this is what my life's going to amount to. This is what life is. I'm not deserving of anything. I'm not deserving of love. And at that time, I was very, very, very sad, very, very low, very, very sad. And what gave me determination to keep going was Tunkasila. I was like, I'm not sure who else is going to look after Tunkasila the way that I look after her, because at that point she had reactivity, and I'm going to get onto that in a moment. But at that point she had reactivity. And also, I would go for walks just around nature, just for these beautiful walks. And I remember one of the walks that I would go on every day, and there was this beautiful tree, and I'd walk this pathway up to this tree, and it had this beautiful branch that it kind of came out at a bit of an angle, so it was bent. And I would sit on that tree, and it would just bounce. It would as it held my weight, and particularly on windy days, it would just bounce, and it would give me so much comfort. And I would just go onto that tree every day and sit and just really kind of contemplate my life and contemplate the situation I was in, and the sadness that I felt. But this is what I deserved. And one day, it had been many, many months that I'd been visiting this tree, and just one day, as clear as day, I heard this voice. It was clear as day. I heard a voice that just said, "You are enough. You are enough, and you are perfect exactly as you are." It was that clear that I thought like there was someone around. I looked around, there was nobody there, but that message, that voice that I heard, really it really hit home. It really filled my heart with a deeper knowing and a curiosity of where did that voice come from, and what did it mean, and how do I learn and understand and accept that I am enough. But I really sat with that, really sat with that message. And I did develop the strength and develop the courage and the confidence to then leave that abusive relationship and start my coexistence and my journey with just myself and Tunkasila for a while. And before I move on to the next slide, I am going to allow other people to join in. Bear with me. Hang on, admit all. There we go. Welcome people that are joining in. As I say, now at this point, when I was in my first abusive relationship with Tunkasila, Tunkasila had developed reactivity. So in a moment when I'm going to talk about 4 wellness strategies that we can use today, one of the reasons why Tunkasila had developed reactivity was because I and I admit that, had placed her in that life-threatening situation of being exposed to and experiencing an abusive relationship that I was in, and also being physically abused herself. So not only is that very scary for any animal, it was very scary, well, maybe more scary for Tunkasila, because as a dog, they don't have the ability to rationalize and to have logic and to reason. And also, given the fact that Tunkasila was a puppy, she was 14 weeks old when this started. She was a young dog. So there's been many early life experiences that have kind of not been in Tunkasila's favor. And so what happened is that very early on, I noticed that Tunkasila showed this reactivity towards people and also towards other dogs. Some people she was fine with, some dogs she was fine with, some people she would be fine with, and then all of a sudden she wouldn't be fine with them. And all I kept getting told time and time again was like, oh, you need to train her more. You need to put more teaching in, do more training, do more teaching, do more training, do more teaching, do more training. Now I got Tunkasila as an animal, as a dog to learn from. I have a deep love of conservation, a deep love of all of life, a deep love that we are all beings that are living this interconnected web of life and experience life in that way. So I wasn't really so focused on wanting to have a dog for a sport or a show or obedience or anything like that. Yes, I did want to understand how I can support a dog so that they feel in communication with me, so we have that understanding of communication, and that my animal and my dog is safe within environments where kind of, there's things that they can't do if we're near a busy road or anything like that. But I really got Tunkasila, really got my dog as an individual to learning from another species about how they live, how they operate, how they function, how they respond. And this purity, this authenticity, this honesty, and this kind of this genuine response that our dogs show. So I then had Tunkasila that was now showing reactivity, as I say, that was kind of unpredictable. You know, some people she reacted to, some dogs she reacted to, other dogs she didn't, other people she didn't. Sometimes she was fine with one person, but the next day she wasn't. And so the professionals that I got advice from was, you know, just do more training, do more teaching, do more training. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but the work that I do and the teachings that I do for dogs are really for those dogs where we've tried everything and nothing seems to work. And it's because we actually need to go deeper with these dogs. And it's really fortunate for some situations, and it's really good for some situations. With some dogs, we have some dogs where, do you know what, we can get away without having to know the deep ins and outs of what a dog is as a whole system. And actually I find that quite lacking. I find that quite limiting, because our dogs can teach us so much when we really open up our eyes and we see them as a whole system and what this means. And this is what Tunkasila taught me, because what happened with Tunkasila is that more teaching and more training just didn't work, and it was never going to work, and it would never work for Tunkasila because of how she was responding based on those experiences. And also, more teaching, more training did two things for Tunkasila. It would either drive her into frustration. She would get really frustrated because I was trying to make her overcome something or make her do something that she just simply she couldn't. It's not that she didn't want to do. She couldn't do. She didn't want to be placed in those situations. She didn't want to be around those experiences, or she would go into shutdown. And in both of those, even though they're kind of polarities, what I wanted her was to be in a place of neutrality. But I was polarizing her responses, either by making her get frustrated because she was really trying to express to me how uncomfortable she felt, or she's going to shut down because I wasn't listening to her needs and her responses. And this made me just go deeper and deeper and deeper, get back out, you know, my zoology textbooks, my genetic textbooks, my cellular biochemistry textbooks, of like, okay, what is going on? Like, how can I really help Tunkasila live her best life, given that she has these sensitivities, these challenges that she represents? And this is why I'm a really big advocate for people and myself. When we talk about reactive dogs, they are not nasty dogs, they are not taboo dogs, they're not dogs we should be scared of. They're dogs that we need to deeply understand, that can actually bring so much teaching for us to deeply understand about life as a whole and how we are all operating in a particular way. And this is one of the things that, you know, isn't really being talked about, and I really want to talk about today to help you better the life that you have and better the life with your dog as well. And this is what I then started to explore. I started just kind of ask the question, okay, what am I missing? Like there must be a bigger picture here. There must be a bigger picture, bigger understanding of why Tunkasila is reacting the way that she is. Why does it vary? Why can she be fine with one person one moment, and the next time she sees them, you know, she can kind of explode in that sense. And the two biggest things that really jumped out at me as I started to explore this more was myself, and also the non-physical being that we all are, the non-physical being that I am, and the non-physical being that our dogs are. And this is something that isn't really being explored by many, but is something that can really influence and support and change how our dogs live and accept in their life and in their world and their experiences. So what I want us to understand is this concept of we have kind of been conditioned for many years that everything is kind of very physical, everything is very kind of linear, everything is very logical. And so we have for many years lived in this kind of society and environment that is very kind of what's classed as mechanical led. So a mechanical led way of thinking, a mechanical process where everything is like a cookie cutter system, which is why I'll be the first to tell you there is no such thing as a textbook dog. Unless we write a textbook for every dog in existence today, there is no such thing as a textbook dog, because every dog is different. But that just looks at the physical aspect that our dogs are. If we kind of, as we're sat now, if we look at ourselves, or if we look at our dog, if your dog's near you, your dog is a physical being. But your dog is a physical being because of all the trillions of cells that your dog is made up of that become specialized. these cells are very much alive. Each cell is communicating to another cell and giving off a resonance, giving off a vibration, giving off a frequency. And depending on the state of health of that dog, depending on the state of health of that animal as an entire ecosystem, so the whole system, the vibration, the resonance, the frequency that that dog is emitting, that the human is emitting, that any animal, plant, whatever is emitting, is an indicator of how peaceful, how safe, how happy, how harmonious that animal is. And the non-physical part is often more important in understanding and observing and bringing into flow with our dogs and ourselves and our way of life, just as much as it is in terms of looking at the physical part of our dogs and what our dogs kind of need physically in terms of like a teaching and training perspective. So I'm not saying that's wrong, because none of this is wrong. This is not about right or wrong. It's about giving and bringing in additional information that can help us better our lives and improve the life of our dogs as well. So when we, as an example, when we talk like about low health, when an animal has low health, all we simply mean is that animal has low frequency, that animal has low energy. And from that perspective, we can see it in terms of the non-physical aspect, the vibrational aspect that that dog has. When we talk about vibrancy, when we talk about health, when we talk about, wow, I just, you know, I feel full of excitement, I feel full of energy. That is the vibrancy within us. That's the frequency and the vibration that's in us. That is the non-physical aspect that we are, which I would class as the soul aspect, the soul quality that you are, the soul quality that our dog is. And this is really, really big and really, really important, because we're not addressing, or most of us are not addressing, the soul qualities and soul aspects of ourselves and our dogs. And the reason this is important is because there are soul causes and spiritual causes to illness. There are soul causes and spiritual causes to distress. And when I talk about illness and distress, I'm not talking about a physical illness, although it can manifest as that. I'm talking about emotional state of distress, a behavioral state of distress, a physiological state of distress. Because if the soul aspects, the soul parts are not being understood and not being looked at and not being accepted or acknowledged, then it's almost like the dog, in terms of its whole system, is incomplete. There are breaks there, there are tears there are gaps there. And so one of the ways that I work with dogs is actually looking at their soul aspects and their vibrational state and their energy state, and how solid is that, how complete is that, and how do we harmonize and work on that to support our dogs. So that's one of the biggest things. So there's two things that I feel isn't really being addressed, isn't being talked about to better the life of ourselves and better the life of our dogs. And one of those things is the soul part of me, the soul part of my dog. And so when I started to address the soul aspects of Tunkasila, that's when I started to see a great improvement in her responses, in her acceptance of modern day life as best as she could for her as an individual. The other point and the other aspect that I looked at was also myself. And what I mean by that is the self-love that I had literally lived my life, even though I was surrounded by love from family and friends, I lived my life not loving myself. And I had no idea just how much that impacts not just people around me, but the animals that I coexist with as well. I had no idea how much that affected my dog, how that affected Tunkasila, how because I was not operating a place of high vibration, of high frequency, because I wasn't, I was kind of filled with hating myself. I didn't hate others, but hating myself. That vibrationally affected Tunkasila. And the reason I'm saying that is because now that I operate from a very, very different place, I operate from an absolute place of deep self-love, of deep trust, of deep knowing, of not only love of the self, but love of others, and not in a non-judgmental way, not in an ego way, not in a superiority way, just like, wow, I am just so proud of who I am. I'm so proud of what I've achieved. I'm so proud of all that I am and all that I'm going to be. I'm full of excitement. I'm full of excitement of what that's going to look like. That from a vibrational perspective, that changes my frequency. That changes my outlook on life. That changes my DNA. It literally changes how my very being, my very cells, my very DNA is vibrating and emitting information to Tunkasila. So this is the thing that I want us to understand. Anything and everything that a dog sees, hears, smells, tastes, touches, or feels from before birth to right now, like right this moment, is affecting and changing and influencing our dog's frequency as well. And so this is why in the work that I do, I'm really empowered and motivated and excited and passionate to not just work on the dog and the dog's whole ecosystem and energy state and soul aspects and soul qualities, but also bringing that to the guardian as well, to bringing that to the person who is ready to receive it, or who needs to receive it and or is ready to receive it. Because these, for me, from my experience of having Tunkasila, who is a reactive dog, these were the two biggest things, the two things that I worked on that created such shifts in Tunkasila's acceptance and dilution of reactivity, of just acceptance and feeling safe and feeling grounded in that sense. And so that's why it's really, I've for ages wanted to talk about it, and hopefully that makes sense. But with that, our dogs, as I say, are a whole ecosystem. So there's this concept of what's called, so you probably have all heard of germ theory. There's also something called terrain theory. So terrain theory kind of got booted out and germ theory got approved. So the germ theory from a pathological perspective is like the concept of when like people get diseases or animals get diseases, animals fall unwell, we fall unwell because there's germs and pathogens and bacteria and viruses. I feel like I can't say the word virus. It feels like I'm in a Harry Potter movie, not trying to say Voldemort. Or there's viruses around. And that's true, of course, that is true. And that's how we can get diseases. But there's another concept that I much prefer and I want people to understand, which is what's called terrain theory. So terrain theory looks at individuals as a whole system, as an ecosystem, and depending on the robustness, depending on the resilience, depending on the stability of that terrain, can influence where and how diseases arise. But when we think about what a disease is from a holistic perspective, disease first and foremost is a dis-ease, it's a distress within the system, within the ecosystem that is our dog, within the ecosystem that is us as an individual. So that's why it's based on a variation, because we are all individual ecosystems that are in this beautiful cocktail, a collective mix of ecosystems that are operating together from a soul perspective, from an energetic vibrational perspective, from a cellular perspective. So that's why in the work that I do, I created something called the Canine Wellness Wheel that not just looks at the physical parts, the mental parts, the emotional parts, but also the soul parts, those non-physical aspects that are actually really important for our dog to be complete, but aren't being addressed and aren't being talked about. So today I'm just going to give you 4 of those wellness strategies, and because I'm so nice and so good, I'm actually giving you 5 because I'm like, oh, there's so many that I want to give. I can't even narrow it down to 5, but I stuck with 5, even though I said I'm going to give you 4. And so one of those is the concept of what I've just said previously about that, how I started to change who I am, how I started to change. And if any of you follow me on Facebook or some of the videos that I do, I'm really big into getting people to remember and to follow and feel what it is to be what I class as your indigenous self. So we are all genetically ancient beings. We are all genetically ancient beings that live in a modern day world. And some of our ecosystems and some of us as individual ecosystems can fare better in that modern day lifestyle than others. But that is because we have parts of us that are lost, parts of us that are not complete, parts of us that feel numb, and that is the indigenous aspect that we all are. These beings, this concept that we are all indigenous beings, we are all genetically ancient beings, where our soul parts, our spiritual side that we all are, that those non-physical aspects are not being honored and not being celebrated and not being cared for. And those things affect us. And because they affect us, and because nothing is separate from anything, they also affect our dog. And one of the ways I'm going to talk about this is through a concept called entrainment. So for you to understand best what entrainment means, for those of you that haven't heard about it, it's for somebody that works in a clock shop, I know a bit of a strange one, but somebody that works in a clock shop, the clock that has the biggest pendulum influences all the other clocks to swing in unison. So it's the pendulum that has that biggest influence, that biggest kind of vibration, that biggest resonance, influences all the other clocks to swing, all the other pendulums to swing in unison. And so what I want us to understand, because I love looking at cellular health. I love teaching people about that. We are all cellular beings. We are all energy beings, and our health depends not just on our physical health, but our physical health actually depends on our cellular health, the state of our cells, and how vibrationally well they are. So through the concept of entrainment, of our DNA itself is alive. Our DNA it's almost like a radio wave. Our DNA is literally, and I really don't like that word, I hate that word in fact, our DNA is giving off a resonance that just goes out and out and out and out and out and out. And other beings are affected by this. So there are going to be some people that are already very they're energetically aware or energetically sensitive. But all of the animals, because our dogs, for example, they literally respond. They respond from their heart. They respond based on how they feel. So they have felt sense, not thought sense. And this is a really big part of us to remember as well in terms of being our indigenous self. One of the things that I love teaching about and talking about is how we become a felt sense being rather than a thought sense being. Our thinking is really important for us to problem solve and plan and to create and have strategies. But this is also our demise, and I'll talk about that later on. But for us to understand this concept, which again, so I love to combine science and indigenous wisdom. I don't feel we can have one without the other, and I think bringing the two together really improves our ability to understand life and why we're all here and how we can experience and explore and learn and expand. But this is now an area of science called biophoton research, where it's being shown that DNA itself literally has a consciousness. Even like when I touch something, that leaves my DNA, which then if I travel hundreds of miles away and think about something, my DNA still then responds. I mean, it's fascinating. So we need to think about that with our dogs. Even, if we are stroking our dogs, if we're leaving for work and like, oh, I love you guys, have a good day. And we get to work and we're a bit angry, a bit frustrated, electrically, vibrationally, from a DNA consciousness perspective, that our dogs can feel that, and that can influence our dogs. So entrainment is something that happens, and it's something that we need to have an awareness of and a knowing of, to better the life of not just ourselves but also our dogs. So that's why one of the things that I do daily is a self-check-in. I am full of self-love. I want to keep my body and my being in a state of excitement. I want to keep my body and being in a state of happiness, of no matter what the challenge, and I'm aware we have some deep challenges right now, but no matter what the challenge, where is the excitement coming from? How can I maintain staying in that excitement? Because not only does that affect myself and how that has shaped my life now in comparison to how my life used to be when I was, full of self-loathing rather than self-love, and all the amazing opportunities through my health, through my guidance, through my knowing, through my connection, through my soul work, through my experiences that have happened and occur now, and also how that influences my dog. So I absolutely know that this influences my dog. And even from a very simple perspective, so I'm going to give you an example of like when I walk to Tunkasila, there's like quite a few fields that we need to pass to have horses in. And not that it hasn't happened in a long time, but as I was working on myself and working through this, if I was like, oh, the horses are really close to the fence, I bet she's going to react, or I was nervous that she would react, okay, not a surprise. But now, I mean, we've been walking past those horses daily, and you know what, she doesn't even batter an eyelid. And that's not because I've done any teaching or training with her around those horses, but that's because I'm aware of my emotional state, and how my emotional state of maybe panic or anxiety, uncertainty, is absorbed by Tunkasila, and then how that influences and affects how she responds. And so this is why we really have to have an awareness of who we are and how we are. And I really make the time daily to do a self-check-in. And with that, like I said before, when Tunkasila was young, one of the things that her body can react to, although we've done some soul work around this, so it's much improved, is the presence of adrenaline. because in that time when she was in that abusive relationship with me, as a young animal, again, like I said before, anything and everything that a dog sees, hears, smells, tastes, touches, or feels is absorbed as an experience, is sent as a message to the cells, and the cells are alive, the cells are electric, the cells are receiving information about how they can then tell the body how to respond and what to do based on those experiences. So one of the things that she absorbed was the presence of adrenaline, but rather than the presence of adrenaline being neutral or something good, the presence of adrenaline for Tunkasila was something bad. And so this is one of the really interesting things, where sometimes Tunkasila would be fine with people, but then she'd maybe meet them, you know, time number 5, time number 6, time number 10, and she would react again. And what I started to realize was the presence of adrenaline. That's what she's responding to. Now, someone could have been to the gym 48 hours beforehand, and then she would react because she would still be able to sense that adrenaline. And this is why I really want to bring this to as many people that are ready to hear it, because it's not just about looking at a dog from a physical perspective of how we can teach them and train them so that, yes, they feel supported, they feel comfortable, they feel happy in their life, but what else we need to know so that we can really anchor their ecosystem, we can really support them who they are as an energy being, as a whole system, and as an individual. So another wellness strategy that I love to do, and I do this really daily with my dogs. So when we think about energy, like energy is changing all the time. And one of the things that I talk about in my course is the concept of, if you're struggling to understand the concept of energy, think about how you feel when someone walks through the door who you absolutely love. Yeah, like, oh, wow, it's you. Oh, I'm so pleased to see you. Yeah, so imagine that feeling. But then someone closely follows them and walks in that door who you absolutely hate. Yeah, you instantly go from like, oh, that's a change in energy. So energy is changing all the time. But because of so many of us humans, so many of our dogs, so many beings, their non-physical aspects, their soul aspects are not being understood, and not being accepted, not being acknowledged, then the energy state of an animal can really deplete quickly, and it can deplete to a point where the energy being, that energy state is going to be like, I don't really have anything left. And that's when I say we get these soul causes, these spiritual causes of distress, of illness, etc., etc. So one of the ways that we can support our dogs and ourselves vibrational state and bring back balance and bring back alignment is through sound therapy. And again, like, people ask me, oh, what about tuning forks? What about gongs? I'm like, sound therapy is sound therapy. And, you know, it's beautiful that we are not all the same, because that would be really boring. And if we're all the same, I wouldn't have anyone to give this information to, because you would all know it already. So it's beautiful that we are all different, because as a collective consciousness, as a collective experience, we can share our stories about what aligns with us, what aligns with our dogs, and what resonates with us. So the sound therapy that resonates for me is my indigenous drumming. I love going to houses and offering this to dogs. I love doing it on my retreats. On my online course, there's a half-an-hour video where you can deeply experience how you do this and how you can do it for your dog. And also I drum for half an hour, and I get so many. If any of you are listening to this video now that have already done my course, please, in the chat box, just if you've listened to the drumming already and you've tell me how you find it, how your dog finds it. I find it very healing, very peaceful, and dogs love it too. Even dogs, like I've worked with dogs that have noise issues, they're fearful of noise, they're sensitive to noise, but that the drum in itself creates like I guess like a hypnosis, but it's the vibration. It's like plugging in. We get plugged back into nature, is what I'm being told. We get plugged back into nature, and that's also because the drum itself represents the beat of Mother Earth, the vibration of Mother Earth, that beat and that sound and that resonance of that beautiful being, that consciousness that is the beat of Mother Earth. So sound therapy, in terms of supporting and harmonizing and bringing grounding and alignment back to our own energy state as a vibrational being, but out our dogs, is something that you can do now. So as I say, like, it's something that I have on my course, but and there is, for humans, there is a particular way that we can do it, because it can, for some of us, like yeah, we can, for some of us, even if we don't know how to follow the instruction, can take us into an altered state of consciousness, which is where we really can tap into all manner of beautiful work. So if you kind of prefer to know that first, then get in touch with me. But if you want to just explore the sound, or stay kind of present but allow your dogs to explore that sound, then look into drumming. There is also a lady that I follow who's a shaman, is called Sandra Ingerman. She has got loads of books out, but if you just Google Sandra Ingerman drumming and go into one of her videos, there's a 30-minute track and you can listen to the drumming of Sandra. Maybe I can put it in the chat box later on. But I do know what people have said to me is that they've listened to that video, but when they've listened to my track, they seem to get more of an alignment, and their dog seems to prefer my drumming. But I don't know, maybe it's because I've done the drumming in particular with the awareness and the intention for not just the humans, for the dogs. But it's drumming. It should be attract, or all animals should be attracted and attuned to it. But yeah, as a sound therapy, that's just what resonates with me and what aligns with me. I love doing my indigenous drumming for all of life, for humans, for dogs, and bringing those two together as well. It's a beautiful kind of silent form of communication. Again, we are so busy, like, I've got a dog, how do I need to be doing things with my dog. This is doing something with your dog, but in a way that is healing, that is resting, and that is so needed. And that brings me on to the next strategy of relaxation. So what I'm very, very aware of, and like I've already said before, we are genetically ancient beings that live in a modern day world. And unfortunately, what I am aware for many humans and many dogs is that this creates a nervous system response that is either in a prolonged state or a permanent state of what is called sympathetic activation. So a state of activation where the nervous system is always alarmed, the nervous system is always on edge. I mean, given what's happening right now, I literally can feel how this has created even people that might be okay with bad news. It's just created this collective shift of kind of panic and fear. And this is not good vibrationally. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But because of the modern day life that we live in, of like, as humans, we put so many stresses and pressures and even thoughts on ourselves that can create a misalignment and an imbalance in our vibrational state. It can keep our nervous system in this constant state of arousal, this prolonged state of arousal, without enough rest until our nervous system is activated again. We are kind of placing our dogs in the same situations, and that's because, I mean, it's happening to most animals, most domestic animals, and like even with horses, for example. But at least at the end of the day, a horse can get put out into a field. A horse can kind of step away from its human guardian and ground and relax and do what it needs to do as an energy being and as a free being. But for our dogs, they live with us, so they are constantly surrounded by this heightened state of arousal, this prolonged state of arousal, without enough rest in between. And again, that can create huge energy shifts in the dog's being that can create soul damage. It can create spiritual damage, and the dog might need spiritual repair and soul repair, which again isn't really being talked about. It needs to be, because when we look at the dog as a whole, it's not just physical health, mental health, or emotional health, it's also spiritual health and soul health to create a complete whole system. So one of the things that I really implement for my own dogs and for on our retreats and for my teachings is a protocol where we put in relaxation. So people really struggle with this because, like, oh, but my dog's so used to doing, or I've got a dog and it should be around and exploring. Exploring is really important, of course, and being stimulated is important, but there is a fine line between being stimulated and overstimulated, being aroused and stressed. And it's ecosystem that becomes stressed without enough recovery, without the opportunity to come back down into neutrality and into alignment, actually is a damaged ecosystem, is a damaged state, is a damaged system. And that again can create all manner of wellness issues, create all manner of distresses where the dog isn't leading its best life, and that again creates issues for ourselves as well. And again, relaxation there's nothing about being right or wrong. There are so many ways that we can explore this. For me, one way we can relax is actually listen to the beat of the drum. We can simply just sit in silence. So this is again something that I teach on the retreats, but it's about a sense of presence. So the email that I sent yesterday, and how I should have started this morning, but I actually forgot, was about being totally present. Totally, like, we're not focusing on anything right now. We are absolutely present and listening. We're not thinking, we are listening and feeling, just like our dogs are, like all other animals are, like we are, like we can do. We're listening and being in silence and sitting, and simply being. So we can do that through meditation. We can do again that through sound therapy. But really, like I talk about on my course and in my teachings, often we kind of wait until it's too late. We wait until there's a big break in our dogs, or a big break in ourselves, to then actually be proactive and to do something about it. Sorry, to be active and do something about it. Whereas we should be proactive. So when I look at this type of work, it's no different between us, like, having breakfast daily, brushing our teeth daily, washing our face daily. It's a daily practice, because energy systems are going in and out all the time. So we want to realign them and stabilize them. So relaxation is a protocol that I put in for my dogs on a daily basis. If you want to know that routine, the very first thing we do is my alarm goes off at 10 to 6 in the morning. We get up, we're out, we do our walk. As we do that walk, I'm also doing daily practices myself. I'm doing a very deliberate walk of seeking, searching, foraging. It's not a quick march, because again, that can affect my energy state, can affect the energy state of my dog. It's a very deliberate being around, just being present of what's around me, how my dog is, a self-check-in. Then when we get home, I feed my dogs, I do a daily ceremony, then we do meditation before I then go into my working day. So relaxation is really important, and our dogs really need it as energy beings. Our dogs really need it to support that soul aspect that our dogs are as well. Oh, a really big important one for me as well is choice. Giving our dogs choice. Our dogs. So I am so full of love of the self and love of others, that everything I say comes from a place of non-judgment. But one of the things that I hear that kind of makes my eye twitch a little bit is the saying, oh, he's a dog, he should know what he's doing. That distracts me and upsets me from a place of non-judgment, because I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, he's a dog, he knows what he should be doing. And also with that, again, because of what we hear, what we see, what we read, what we watch on movies, it's almost like this conditioning and acceptance therefore of, like, well, our dog's are domestic animals, so it needs to be told what to do all the time, without having free will. So I'm really passionate about all animals having free will, because this releases them and allows them to express and experience and feed those soul aspects, those spiritual aspects, those soul aspects and soul parts that our dogs are as well. And, for some dogs, they can have loads of choice. It might be, we are fortunate enough to live in a big house, or maybe just live in a house but with lots of ground. So our dog can literally go out and explore and have choice of when it comes in and when it goes out, and where it wants to explore and when it wants to run and when it wants to walk and where it wants to sleep. There's some dogs like Tungusia that's reactive. She doesn't have so much choice of being off lead, for example, but in terms of when we go for a walk, she chooses what route she wants to go on. She chooses, like, which, does she want to turn around? Does she want to go straight on? Do you want to do a loop? Do you want to do a linear walk? In terms of the house, my dogs accept grandma, granddad's room when they come to stay, so none of my dogs are allowed in that room, but my dogs have free reign of the house. Like right now, one of my dogs is sleeping downstairs, the others are upstairs on the bed. So choice is really important, because again, like, I refer it to when I was in that abusive relationship. I had no choice. I was like a prisoner, and that really affected my energy state. It affected my being. It affected my spiritual state. It affected all of who I am, and it affected my whole system. So allowing a dog to have choice, and a dog knowing they have choice, is very liberating for the animal. It allows freedom. And when I talk about, I mean in terms of like energetic freedom, it allows the dog to express and flow and be who they are as an individual. I think there's one of the person that wants to join. There we go. There we are. And again, like, choice for me, this is about, like, using your imagination. I think we get, we are, as humans, we can get very very kind of obsessed about being scared of, like, oh, I don't want to do the wrong thing. This is imagination. This is about development and learning. So there's nothing really that's right or wrong. If it felt right at the time, then it was a right thing to do. We can always learn from it. Like, I thought it was right for me to be in an abusive relationship because I just hated myself. Now I know that was a total wrong thing to do, and I don't want, like, we are all deserving of self-love. We are all deserving to be loved. We are all deserving to live our best life, and so is any animal and every animal on this earth. I now know that, but through my experiences, I needed, for me as an individual, I'm not saying for anybody else, but for me as an individual, those are the experiences that I needed to experience in order to get where I am today, to then better the life of myself, better the life of my dogs, better the life of other people, their dogs, and goes out as a consciousness, as a collective. So again, even when we feed our dogs, this is something I do with my dogs. My dogs are fed a raw food diet. They have been for 12 years. And but with that, like, not really daily. It is often, but not necessarily daily. But I'll get all manner of different, like, fruits and nuts and seeds or vegetables or whatever, and I'll just put them on the ground, and my dogs can choose what they want to consume, what they don't want to consume. Our dogs, and I always hate saying our dogs as energy beings, dogs as beings that have free will, really know what they want. They have likes and dislikes, they have opinions, they have needs, they have expectations. So this is what I want people to understand, is that although we are told in our textbooks of how a dog should be and what a dog should like and how a dog should respond, that is very restrictive, that is very limiting. Our dogs are free beings. What one of my dogs loves to do isn't what my other dog loves to do. Where one of my dogs loves to go isn't where another one of my dogs loves to go. I'm not expecting, or I don't expect ever, all my dogs to want to do the same thing, because I don't expect me to want to do the same thing as my husband or you or my friends. Like, this is again the collective conscious of experience where we can all learn together, but don't expect that, again, in that mechanistic approach, like I said before, we need to step out of this it's really hard to say that, this cookie cutter system. And then also that brings me on to another wellness strategy of, how is your dog feeling? So we can use our self-check-in. How am I feeling today? How is my dog today? Do you know, like, this morning already, it's been a little bit chaotic. Like, I'm giving you an example, I'm not saying this has happened this morning. It might be, okay, we've already had the postman and the delivery driver to drop off an Amazon parcel and our raw food delivery. Actually, one of our neighbours' dogs escaped and they were on our garden barking at the window. Just thinking, what has happened today that might shape our dog's energy system? Is it best to take my dog out for a walk? Is it best to bring in some relaxation and some work on the dog's energy state? Is it best to give my dog a missed walk day? And so this is another thing that I always say in my teachings. I read a book by an animal biologist called Cindy Engel. She states the only thing in nature that is constant is change, and I love to use it so often because it's true. Just because our dogs were okay yesterday doesn't mean they said they're going to be okay today. Just because they responded one way yesterday doesn't mean they said they're going to respond the same way today. Just like with Tunkasila, just because she was friends with someone yesterday doesn't mean to say she's going to be friends with them today, because our dogs are energy beings, and depending on their current state and their energy state right now at present time, based on a whole of life experiences, as well as what's happened the day before and right now, and also their soul strength, their soul aspect, their soul quality, that can shape how they're going to respond. So don't give our dogs that choice and that freedom to do not just a self check-in, but a check-in of how a dog is today. And that's harder when we have more than one dog, but that's something that we need to do for every dog that we coexist with. How is our dog feeling? What is going to be best for our dog today? What expectations, or what should we not be surprised at? If I know that Tunkasila's energy state is already sensitive, but a lot of things have happened that have created an arousal in her nervous system, I know that if we see a jogger, she's likely to feel more distressed about that than what she normally does. I know that if there is some dogs off lead, she's going to feel more distressed about that than what she normally does, because her energy state has already become heightened. So we just do a self check-in. And really, when we start to operate from a place of self-love, we do these check-ins, we become more and more connected, not just with ourselves, not just our dogs, but life. We become very, very attuned to this. And that's what I'm going to talk about in a moment. So I hope you're still enjoying all of this, guys. In fact, I need to do a bit of a time check. Let me see. Hang on. Oh, well, we're already over an hour, but if you guys are all right to hang on, we're still going to keep on going because I'm having a great time. So I've already expressed, like, and discussed, hopefully it makes sense, that everything is a frequency. Yes, we are physical beings. You can see physically me. I'm physical Isla. But we are all made up of cells, and these cells are giving off this vibration, this frequency. So everything is a frequency, and that's why we can sense energy, we can sense frequencies. And because our dogs, because all animals, so we are the only species that has self-limiting doubts, that has self-limiting beliefs. No other animal has. So therefore they literally are acknowledging, accepting everything that they're feeling and responding with that and from that. So everything is an energy. And with that, one of the things that therefore we have an awareness of is what's in the middle is our thoughts and our words, because what follows a thought, what follows a word is energy. And even when we look at words from a perspective of spelling, words are also spells. We can use words that either elevate our own energy state or deflate our energy state, or likewise can elevate the energy state and frequency of another being, whether it's another human. It's like you're literally sending an arrow to that person, whether it affects their that dog's energy state and the energy state of another human. So we have to, again, when we do a self-check-in, and this is why, again, I'm very mindful of the words that I use, and because I now operate from a place of self-love and an awareness of how connected everything is through frequency of the thoughts that I have, because everything we think, everything we speak generates an energy, and because that is felt within the body, so it's a felt sense, it then is sent out and other individuals, other beings can absorb that. So that's why we have to be very careful of the words that we speak, in the, not just to our dogs, but also in the presence of our dogs, and also the thoughts that we have. Because what is very interesting is how our dogs respond based on our thoughts, even if it's just us and the dog or as a group. So I'm going to give you an example that I use in my teachings, and I'm going to kind of shorten it very quickly because I'm aware of time. There's other things that I want to talk about. But I went out to a house where a dog was starting to show reactive behaviour towards a family member that would come and visit. So the family member would come and visit very, very infrequently. But for the first kind of hour, the dog was fine with the family member, like interact with them, absolutely fine. And then after about an hour, the dog would become very begrudging, basically, towards this family member, and often like kind of then like growl or snap, and just be very dismissive when that then family member tried to kind of interact with them. And so we went down the route, of course, that we always have to rule out: is there any medical issues? Is the dog in pain? Like, what happened? Give me a picture of what happened. Now, to cut a long story short, what happened is that this family member was kind of tolerated with other family members because they were family, but this particular family member that would come and visit infrequently was a little bit of a show off. And it got to the point after about an hour where the other members of the household were like, oh, just wish this person would go home. And I was like, you're thinking that, and your dog is being honest in portraying what you are inwardly thinking about what you are outwardly wanting to happen. So that's just kind of a bit of tongue-in-cheek kind of fun example, but really in terms of who we are and what we think about ourselves, but the thoughts that we have in terms of, and it has been proven, there's a book called The Cortisol Effect which talks about this, where like even if we're sat at home thinking about fears, which I know is really quite relevant right now, which is why I didn't want to postpone this webinar, but even when we're sat at home thinking about fears, it might be someone that's afraid of flying, afraid of the dentist, whatever, we're sat imagining it, that changes our nervous system response. It literally does create cortisol, adrenaline in our body, and that affects our energy state, it affects our soul aspects, it affects our functioning, and our dogs respond to that as well. We can be like, oh, normally when you're at home you're really relaxed, but I can feel, like I can literally feel your arousal. Why is that? What is the difference? What is the change? Oh, this person's just walked past the house, or this person's knocking on the door. That must be where the arousals come in. So we have to be aware of our thoughts and our words, not just for our dogs to live their best life, but also ourselves as well. Thoughts that promote positivity, that promote pleasure, that promote happiness, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. And also, as I say, the words. So again, no words like, he's a bad dog. And that really upsets me, because any dog, even if they're doing something we don't want them to do, they are only doing it because they're doing it based on how they respond. They're doing it because at that moment in time, they're expressing what their body is telling them to feel. They're expressing what their body is telling them to do and respond. But even when we, like Tunkasi last night was really winding me up. So my husband had some pizza and he left it out, and Tunky was like, I want the pizza, I want the pizza. And I didn't at first, I didn't realize what she wanted. And I was like, oh, Tunkasi, I love you, but you've been a right little pest today. So we have to think of our words rather than, he's a bad dog, or I don't like the dog, or like you're naughty, or you're wrong. Like those things kind of really wound my heart when people say, like, he's doing it wrong, or he's a naughty dog. These energetically affect our dogs as well. And so with that as well, something to remember, like I've already talked about, is how we are about ourselves. How much do we love ourselves? And again, I don't mean like, oh, I love myself, kind of from an ego superiority way, because that's a polarity of who we truly are and who we are as a frequency and energy being. But when we are absolutely so full of certainty, of just self-assurance and self-love of, you know what, I am not better than anybody else, but I am not worse than anybody else, and nobody else is worse than me. We are all unique, so therefore we can't compare ourselves to anybody else. Therefore we are all perfect as we are. We are all here to grow and learn and expand, but right now, our current condition, we are all perfect as we are. And that's again that message that I got from that tree, which was so, it just makes me laugh even think about it. That's what I understood, to be full of self-love, to be perfect. And again, as we are, that creates a ripple effect, and not just how we can live our best lives, of how we understand how deserving we are as a being, as a human, but how deserving our dogs are, and all beings and all life is. So it also starts with self-love. There's two things that we're not talking about: love of self and how that affects our dogs, and also soul work and how that affects our dogs. And therefore, as we see in the next circle, is soul work. How we support our dogs through recognizing them not just as a physical being, an emotional being, and how we interact with them mentally, but also recognizing them as a spiritual being, and how we can tap in. So this can be a form of, you already do animal communication, that can be a way of assessing the animal's soul work. It can be just simply, you are so attuned to your dog, you just know. One of the things that I do is actually I look at the soul aspect of the dog, the soul qualities that the dog has, if there's any breaks, if there's any part of the soul that is kind of detached, and how that can then improve our dogs as well. Thank you for putting your microphone onto mute. I think you just recognised that, much appreciated. So with self-love, it then is also, okay, what about us in a deeper perspective? And this is why I also do like intuitive coaching, indigenous coaching for you, for the human, because we are all a vibration. We are all emitting a frequency. So often when I go to, wow, that often sounded very loud there, sorry. Often when I go to people's houses, or in the work that I see within the industry, it's not wrong, it's absolutely right to look at the dog and how we can support the dog, so the dog is from a state of feeling safe. Okay, there is someone that's got their microphone on. If I can just please ask you to switch, to put it onto mute, that would be great. But yeah, we can become so focused on, oh my God, I want my dog to just be happy. I want my dog to overcome this challenge. I want my dog to just be well, be happy, feel peaceful. But we kind of forget about our part and where we have to play in this, in terms of entrainment, in terms of, are we full of self-love? Do we polarize? Where in our being are we living from? Are we living from anxiety, fear, panic, worry? Are we living from a place like I did, from that example of my mum's traumas shaped a belief in me that created stories that created a reality, but not a true reality, of feeling full of just self-loathing and self-hate, which then put me in situations that showed and confirmed what I believed, in that, well, I'm unlovable, which is not true. We're all deserving of love. We're all deserving to live our best life, as is all of life. But often we cannot look at the complete circle. So this is when I talk about in those videos, if anybody's been watching them, of be your hoop. This is what I mean when I talk about be your hoop. This is why 2 of my tattoos are circles, to remind me of to be in my hoop, to walk in my hoop. And what I mean by that is a complete circle of, with a self check-in, and through the way that I now live my life, of honouring my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health, and also my spiritual health, because again, they are all interconnected. We can't focus like right now, like some people are panicking like, oh my God, my gym's closed, I can't get to the gym. Okay, that's great that you focus on your physical health, but your emotional health is now being affected because you're becoming obsessed with your physical health and not being able to get to the gym. We've got to look at all aspects so that we are complete, and we walk from that place of a deep knowing and deep trust of who we are, how we can live our best life, and also therefore how it supports our dogs and helps our dogs. So this is because the subject in itself is huge. You know, it's taken me, I've been doing this now for hang on, well, I've been doing this intensively for probably 8 years. I have had this knowing of kind of this awareness of connection to nature since I was a kid, but I didn't understand the true connection until I got that message from the tree. That's when it really, really deeply came. So I've kind of been walking this path now for 10 years, and bringing it to people through the intuitive coaching, which is so important, not because as a human being we deserve to empower ourselves to then empower other people how to live our best life, but also how that affects our dogs as well. But with that grasp of, like, you know, there is so much talk now about, you know, mental health, emotional health, physical health, how important all that is for wellness, but also spiritual health as well, again, which isn't being addressed so much. And that's the part of me that I just get and I love talking about, and I love teaching. So with that, how can we support ourselves? What can we do today? What can you do today so that you are in alignment, that you are following a path of being in your hoop, you are following a path of being your Indigenous self? For now, right now, there's information I can give you without exploring it further. So there's two things. One of them is stay in excitement. And this is why I didn't want to postpone the webinar, even given the current situation that, you know, the world collectively finds itself in, is stay in excitement. So when we talk about being in neutrality, when I talk about being in self-love, when I talk about, I want to be as vibration aligned as I can, and to just have a deep trust, a deep knowing that all is exactly how it's meant to be, is staying in excitement. So we have kind of two opposites of the same coin. How was expressed, so one of my coaches, how he expressed it to me, which was like it was so poignant. I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. What's on the other side of fear is excitement. So we can polarize. We can stay in fear, or we can polarize or we can move to excitement. Both of them are a vibration. Both of them are an energy. Fear is a very dense energy that keeps us in lack and restriction and control. And when I was in that abusive relationship, I was living in fear, which kept me in control. It didn't allow me to expand and express and kind of be my true self. But excitement is another energy that allows you to explore, that allows you to be transparent, that allows you to express your truth, that allows you to express your love, that allows you to be vulnerable. That vulnerability is a good thing because it allows for expansion. Where we do things that we're fearful of, most people go, no, that scares me, but I'm not going to do it. Step into it, and that allows for excitement. On what's on the other side of that fear is excitement. So I encourage you, particularly in this state of climate that we are right now, is to find moments of what excites you. Even if we are unable to work right now, we're unable to see our friends, we're unable to see our loved ones, where we have this concern, what can we think, no matter how big or no matter how small, that brings excitement to our being? Because even by doing that changes your energy state, it changes your vibration, it brings you into a state of being your Indigenous self, being your true and authentic self. It keeps you in that place of, yes, vulnerability, but being truth, being transparent, being honest, and that in itself also influences our dogs as well. So my question is, and my invitation is, what today can you explore and look for that excites you? And also how we can operate from that place of being operating from a place of love-led rather than fear-led. So this is really, really, really deep. It goes back to that mechanistic. Bless you. Please, can you turn your microphone off though? But bless you. Where we go back into that state of when I was talking about, like, we it kind of happened around the Industrial Revolution. It was before the Industrial Revolution, but where there was a huge change. It kind of became very, very swayed, and that we live in this mechanical world where everything is the same and everyone learns the same and operates the same and should be the same, and it's very, therefore, comparison and I'm better than you, and it's created this belief system for so many humans, where we live from a place of fear, we live from a place of lack, we live from a place where we do, because of that fear, we create stories and we create patterns and we create beliefs that we then live. So then we believe this is our reality. That is just one reality, but it's not a true reality. When we actually open ourselves up to excitement, when we start to experience and explore self-love, then we've become our true self, we become aligned, and we are stepping further into being our indigenous self, which is how we should all be. We are all energy beings, and we are all genetically ancient beings that live in a modern day world. So looking at how we can, even on a daily basis, even no matter how new it is and a new concept, having an awareness that if we live from a place of fear, that does shape stories. And some of this is deep work. Some of my clients that I currently have are going through deep ancestral stories that shape their beliefs now. And so we're working through that and then now coming out the other side. But how we can operate from a place of being from a place of love-led, and therefore felt sense. It's a felt sense rather than a thought sense, because again, our mind is very important. It's very important and much honoured and respected and creates greatness. But one of the a coach that I follow, a guy called Oren, has a saying, it's an indigenous saying, an ancient saying that Oren says quite a lot, which is the mind is a powerful servant but a cruel master. And when we learn how to love as our indigenous self and live as our indigenous self, what that means is we learn how to step out of our mind and work with our mind as a resource and as an ally, and as a collective and as a complete system. But actually we learn how to live from a place of knowing, and that is a felt knowing, and a place of love. So I hope you've enjoyed the webinar. Thank you all for staying on, and I know there's a few chats coming through, so I'm going to jump on the chat, so please stay on if you can. I appreciate it's Mother's Day and the world's quite crazy right now, but I just ask you to stay on so we can look at some of the chats. If you want to know more, please go to my website. There is an intuitive coaching program that will be happening soon, the next kind of program, and if you wanted to know more about what I've been talking about in this webinar, please do also go and have a look at my online course, which is available. If any of you that are on the talk now that have already done the online webinar and just want to kind of put a little comment about how you're finding it, I would be most grateful for that and gratefully received. I'm going to come out of this full screen. Let's see if this works. It should work. And I'm going to go to stop sharing, so you can just see my big face, or hopefully. And let me find my chat box. Where is it? Chat. Okay. Okay. So I'm pleased that you've enjoyed it. So absolutely fabulous. Thank you. Thank you, Georgie. Yeah, so Sarah, thank you. Can I go all the way to the top? Oh, wow. So loads of you commented. Thank you. Let me see. Oh, Corinne, because you're in France in lockdown, but with your 6 dogs. Perfect. Oh, thank you from Germany, Netherlands, Oregon. Wow, early for you, right? I hope you still, well, hopefully still be on because it's getting later in the day for you. Okay, so that's where you guys are all from. Tell me, do you have any questions or anything? Let me see. Oh man, it's just luscious to see where everyone's from. Thank you for joining in. That's really, that in itself, that in itself is excitement. That in itself is pure love for me right there. That makes my soul shine, and I'm gonna drink that up today and remember that. So Linda, you're saying, I so love all you were saying. It's so true how we and our feelings affect how our dogs feel and behave. Absolutely, it absolutely is, and we need to remember that. And again, how it affects everybody else as well, right? Like other humans, other animals. This is why it's what I am very mindful of is that given the current state of the situation, again, it can be polarized. Let's come from a place of neutrality. The world right now, so many of us that already live in fear have gone really deep into fear. What I want us to do, what I want to do is pull us out into excitement. This is a time for great opportunity, for great learning, for great development. When we drop into self-love, remember what that self-love is. It's transparency, it's vulnerability, it's authenticity. It's an opportunity to know, to have deep knowing and deep trust that something much bigger is happening and going to happen. And so it's the excitement of the unknown rather than the fear of the unknown. Perfect. So thanks, Nina. Linda, hi, Linda. Wait, try the drumming sound with Dex. Perfect. Hi, Anne. Yeah, so Anne said, blessings, Island, everyone. Now more than ever is it clear that we're all connected. Really enjoyed the webinar. Thank you. My dog and I are so connected. She feels what I'm thinking often before I'm aware of my thoughts. Mwah, beautiful. In the recent past, I had panic attacks and she would bark at everything to keep me safe. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. That's a vulnerability right there. Thank you for sharing that in this space. Thank you so much, Isla. This has been so interesting, enlightening, beautiful. I'm so pleased. Thank you, Georgie. Yeah. Thank you, and thank you, Peter. Thank you for joining in as well. So look, guys, it's a Sunday. We might kind of be in lockdown. Things might be out of routine, and there is that uncertainty and that knowing. Take this as an opportunity to bring out that excitement. Take this opportunity to do our self-check-in. Take this opportunity to ask, how our dog's feeling. What am I going to do for my dog today? Remember, the two biggest things that aren't being talked about from my perspective, from my experiences, is how we can develop ourselves to walk the path of our Indigenous self and our true self, and how that not just only empowers us to live our best life, but also how that can affect our dogs, and also the importance of soul work, the importance of looking and addressing and recognizing everything as the soul part that they are. For you, you're all beautiful people. For you all out there, I just want to end with this. So this is the song that I started with. It's by one of my favorite bands, Zac Brown Band. It's called Quiet Your Mind, and I just want to bring it into 2:30. Just let's end by listening to these words, and then I'm going to let you guys go to enjoy the rest of your beautiful day. Here you go. Quiet your mind, quiet your mind. So I leave you with that, my beautiful friends. Go and have a beautiful Sunday. Feel excitement of the unknown, and thank you all for dropping in. I love you all. Many blessings. Thank you. Thank you.